Let's dive in and take a look at how the biggest names, like Hollywood stars and sports legends, try to sway U.S. elections.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see.
We've got this article, Stars, Athletes, Super Rich, how they influenced the U.S. election campaign. I think a lot of our listeners are really curious about how much influence these endorsements actually have.
That is a really good question.
Yeah.
I mean, we always think about celebrities having a big impact, but do they really? Let's start by talking about celebrity endorsements. It's a pretty long tradition in the U.S., especially for the Democrats.
Yeah, it's almost like they're going beyond just endorsing a candidate. They're setting the whole vibe.
Yeah.
Beyoncé offered up her song Freedom for Harris's campaign.
Wow.
Stevie Wonder performed Higher Ground at the Democratic Convention.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty powerful stuff.
Definitely. And then there's Taylor Swift, right?
Oh, yeah.
Huge endorsement for Harris. And she's got a massive fan base.
Especially those younger voters.
Absolutely. Now, when we look at Trump, fewer celebrity endorsements for sure.
Yeah.
A lot of them tend to be people like Kid Rock, Kanye West, people who maybe appeal to a different demographic.
Yeah. And it makes you wonder, do these people actually change anyone's mind? Or are they just energizing the people who already support that candidate?
Yeah.
I mean, we see these artists like Adele, Springsteen, Neil Young. They're fighting to stop Trump from using their music at his rallies.
Yeah.
They're saying it misrepresents their views.
Absolutely. It really gets to the heart of the question.
Right.
Do endorsements make a difference, or do they just kind of double down on what people already think? And it's really hard to say. Researchers are still kind of debating that one.
Okay, so maybe we don't know just how much Hollywood sways things.
Yeah.
But what about sports? This article points out how campaigns are increasingly targeting young men sports fans.
Yeah.
It's like they're a key demographic battleground.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we see Steve Kerr, he's heading up the Athletes for Harris campaign. Yeah, and there are a lot more sports organizations that are kind of siding with the Democrats. And this is actually a bit of a shift from recent years when, you saw a lot of right-wing politics in the sports world.
It's funny because then you have Trump. He's at these sports events all the time. He's close with Dana White, the UFC CEO. It's almost like politics is becoming its own sports rivalry.
It is unusual in the U.S., though. I mean, usually sports try to appeal to everyone,
Right.
Cross party lines. So these open political stances, they're definitely mixing things up.
Speaking of shaking things up,
Oh, yeah.
we got to talk about Elon Musk.
Of course.
I mean, we know him as a tech innovator, the space guy.
Right.
But this article reveals him as a big political player,
Yeah.
specifically a Trump supporter.
Yeah. And his approach is, well, definitely different.
Yeah.
It's not just, I endorse Trump. He's pouring money into the Republican Party, like $75 million.
Wow.
Through this thing called the America PAC. But here's the thing. His campaign strategy is wild.
He's running $1 million lottery every day for registered voters in swing states.
Yeah.
But here's the catch. You have to sign a petition about free speech and gun rights to enter. Is that even legal?
That is the question, isn't it? Because, I mean, U.S. law prohibits paying people to vote or register. So the critics are saying that this lottery, even though it's not directly tied to voting, creates this incentive.
Yeah.
That might be crossing the line.
It's like he's pushing the limits.
Yeah.
But that's Elon.
Yeah.
Always pushing the boundaries. And it doesn't stop there. The article talks about how he's using X, that's the new name for Twitter, to help Trump's campaign. He's allowing all this right-wing content to spread. He's openly sharing his own political views.
Which can be pretty controversial, let's be honest.
Yeah.
And the article also points out that, they're not always factual. Some studies have found that he shared over 50 false or misleading election-related messages on X just since January.
Wow.
So that's a lot of misinformation getting out to his millions of followers.
Yeah. You look at how the media is approaching this election.
Yeah.
It's kind of all over the place.
Yeah, it's a mixed bag.
Some outlets are fully endorsing, others are staying neutral or even censoring themselves.
Yeah. I mean, you've got the Wisconsin State Journal, for example.
Okay.
They've been endorsing candidates for 150 years.
Yeah.
And they're backing Harris.
Wow.
Which is a pretty strong statement given their history. Then you have the Detroit News. They're opting out this year, saying they don't want to endorse anyone they see as unsuitable.
Okay.
But they're not against endorsements.
Wow.
They see it as a service to their readers.
Right.
So it's about being selective, not abandoning the idea.
Makes sense. But what's surprising is that papers like the Washington Post, Los Angeles Times, like historically strong supporters of the Democrats, they're holding back this time.
Yeah.
It sparked a lot of discussion and speculation.
Yeah, for sure.
This article even suggests that Jeff Bezos, he owns the Washington Post, he might be worried about backlash from a potential Trump win. And that's why he supposedly stopped them from endorsing Harris.
Whether that's true, who knows? But the reaction has been real. Staff resigning, subscribers canceling, shows how strong people feel about these endorsements.
Absolutely, for or against.
Yeah, so it really makes you wonder, do these endorsements from celebrities, athletes, even big media outlets, do they actually affect how people vote?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? We see all this passion, all these strategies. But what happens when people actually get to the voting booth?
Well, the research might surprise you. The article actually mentions some studies that suggest the impact of, say, newspaper endorsements is actually pretty small.
Really? I always thought those big front page endorsements, they must carry a lot of weight, especially with those undecided voters.
It seems logical, right? But the data shows that most people have already made up their minds by the time those endorsements come out.
So it's more about preaching to the choir than winning converts.
Exactly. Reinforcing existing views rather than swaying opinions.
Okay, but what about celebrity endorsements? I mean, those got to have more power, right? These are people with massive followings,
Right.
trendsetters. They're everywhere.
There's this really fascinating book by Mark Harvey that digs into this, and he argues that even those big celebrity endorsements, they might not be the game changers we think they are. He says that voters are actually more influenced by everyday concerns, the economy, gas prices, their own personal finances.
That makes sense. I mean, we all feel those day-to-day realities, and that probably outweighs, the glamour of some celebrity endorsement when you're actually casting your vote.
It's about priorities, what's affecting your life directly versus who some famous person is supporting.
But hold on, the article did mention that when Taylor Swift encouraged her fans to register to vote, it actually led to a surge in voter registration, especially among young people.
True, she can definitely get her fans moving. But did those newly registered voters actually vote? And did her endorsement influence who they chose? That's harder to say.
So registering is one thing, but actually changing someone's mind about who to vote for, that's a whole different ballgame.
Exactly. And that's where the limits of these endorsements, even from someone as influential as Taylor Swift, become apparent.
So if these endorsements aren't necessarily deciding elections, why are campaigns so obsessed with getting them? Why all the effort, all the strategizing?
Well, that's where things get a bit more complicated, because while endorsements might not single-handedly swing votes, they still serve a purpose.
Like what? If it's not about swaying those undecided voters, what's the point?
Well, they definitely generate media attention. A big endorsement creates headlines, keeps a candidate in the spotlight, dominates social media.
So it's more about attention grabbing than changing hearts and minds.
In a way, yes. It's about reminding voters who the candidate is, associating them with positive figures, keeping their name out there.
It's like a publicity boost. Way to cut through all the noise of the election.
Exactly. And let's not forget, endorsements can really energize a candidate's existing supporters. Seeing their favorite celebrity or athlete backing their candidate, that can really solidify their support. It might even inspire them to get more involved in the campaign.
It's like rallying the troops, getting them excited, ready to go out there and fight for their candidate.
Precisely. It creates momentum, shared enthusiasm, and that can be huge for voter turnout, even fundraising.
It's almost like a psychological game, isn't it? These endorsements create a sense of validation, like you're on the right side. And that can be really motivating.
You got it.
Yeah.
It's about tapping into those emotional connections, those feelings of belonging, of shared purpose. That's what drives people to participate in politics.
And I bet those feelings are even stronger when the endorsement comes from someone who's seen as an outsider, like Elon Musk. I mean, he's not your typical politician or celebrity, but he commands a lot of attention, a lot of respect, especially in certain circles.
Absolutely. His endorsement carries a different kind of weight because he's seen as independent, right? Someone who's not part of the establishment, someone who's not afraid to speak his mind, even if it's controversial.
It's like he's disrupting the endorsement game itself, just like he's disrupted so many other industries.
And that unpredictability, that willingness to challenge the norms, makes him a really interesting player in this whole election cycle.
So while this article argues that endorsements might not directly change voters' minds, it also shows how they shape the narrative, create buzz, energize supporters.
It's a complex game, for sure, with lots of different layers. Endorsements may not be the trump card, but they're definitely a significant piece of the puzzle.
It reminds us that elections aren't just about policies and platforms. It's also about personalities, emotions, the stories we tell ourselves about who we are and what we believe in.
And those stories are often shaped by the voices we trust, the people we admire, and the narratives that connect with our values.
Speaking of narratives, let's bring it back to the media and their role in all this. We were talking about how some publications are holding back on endorsements this year, while others see it as their duty to guide their readers.
And that choice has consequences, like we saw with the Washington Post and the Los Angeles Times. Withholding endorsements can really alienate readers. It leads to accusations of, cowardice or self-censorship.
It's a tough balancing act. On one hand, they want to stay objective, avoid appearing biased. On the other hand, they feel responsible for informing their readers and providing analysis that can help people make informed decisions.
And in our current political climate, which is so polarized, that balancing act becomes even harder. Every decision, every endorsement or lack thereof is scrutinized, interpreted through this partisan lens.
It shows that the media, just like celebrities and athletes, they're operating this really charged political landscape. Their actions or inactions have real consequences.
Absolutely. And those consequences go beyond the media themselves. They affect how we consume information, how we form opinions, and ultimately how we participate in democracy.
We've covered a lot of ground today, from Hollywood endorsements to the strategies of billionaires to those ethical dilemmas facing the media. It's a lot to take in, and I think we need a quick break to let it all sink in. But when we come back, we'll have some final thoughts on this fascinating topic and leave you with some questions to ponder. Stay with us.
Thank you for joining us today. If you enjoyed our discussions and insights on current topics, support us by subscribing to the channel and turning on the notification bell so you don't miss any exciting updates. Let us know what you think. Your opinion is important to us. Feel free to write us your thoughts or questions in the comments. Please also recommend us and share this video with friends and family who are interested in the latest developments. Together we stays informed and inspired.
All right, so we've been talking about how all these big name celebrities, athletes, even billionaires try to influence U.S. elections. And it seems like their influence is more complex than we might initially think.
Yeah, it's easy to assume that those endorsements have a huge impact, but as we've seen, the research suggests it's a bit more nuanced than that.
Right.
Their direct effect on changing voters' minds might be limited, but they definitely play a big role in shaping the narrative, getting supporters excited, and kind of setting the agenda for public discussion.
So it's not just about swaying undecided voters. It's about creating that buzz, reinforcing existing beliefs, and really tapping into those emotional connections that make people participate in politics.
Exactly. Elections aren't just about, cold, hard facts and policies. They tap into our emotions, our sense of belonging, our desire to be part of something bigger.
Yeah, and those endorsements, whether we're conscious of it or not, they can really play on those feelings. Think about it. You see your favorite musician or athlete supporting a candidate, and suddenly you feel like you're on the right side, you're part of a winning team.
It's like they're giving you permission to believe in something, to invest your hopes in a particular vision for the future.
And that feeling of shared belief, of collective purpose, it can be so powerful. It can motivate you to go out and vote, donate to a campaign, volunteer your time, things you might not have done otherwise.
So while we shouldn't ignore the importance of thinking things through, making informed decisions, we also have to acknowledge how much our emotions and social influences affect our political choices.
Which brings us to a really important question for you, our listeners. How do you navigate this whole web of influence, especially now, with so much information out there and those echo chambers we all find ourselves in on social media?
Here's a challenge for you. The next time you see an endorsement, whether it's from a celebrity, a media outlet, even a friend, just take a second. Pause and really think about it.
Ask yourself, what's the motivation behind this endorsement? Is it genuine? Is it strategic? Is it something else altogether?
Yeah, and how does it make you feel? Does it resonate with your values, or does it make you question the person who's doing the endorsing?
And maybe the most important question, how is it affecting my own decision-making? Am I letting it sway me too easily? Or am I actually evaluating the information and forming my own independent opinion?
These are tough questions to ask ourselves, but they're so important if we want to be informed and engaged citizens.
Because ultimately, the power to choose, the power to decide who represents us, who shapes our future, it lies with each of us individually.
And that's a power worth cherishing, worth protecting, and worth using thoughtfully and with integrity.
So as we head into this election season with all its noise and all the distractions, just remember, think critically, question everything, and make your choices based on your own values and the future you want to see.
And never underestimate the power of your own voice, your own informed participation in the democratic process.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of U.S. election influence. We'll be back soon with another thought-provoking topic. Until then, keep diving deep.